Thank you for viewing this RFID Community Connect video from AIM. AIM is an industry association for automatic identification technologies. It's not only RFID, but barcoding, IoT, or any other technologies that automatically identify and capture data. If you want to learn more about AIM, go to aimglobal.org or reach out to us to set up a one-on-one call where we can tell you a little bit more about how AIM can benefit your business.
I'm very excited to have with us here today Dom Guinard from spotd.com and Aliya Pogorelskaya from Altinteg. So welcome, appreciate you being here today. And just to kind of level set and get things started, can we just go over broadly for organizations that may still be early in understanding the digital product passport, or DPP as we'll probably refer to it a lot here today. How would you define a DPP and why is it becoming such an important topic globally?
So probably that's my turn to start. Thanks, Michael. It's great to be here. I'm Aliya from Altinteg, and I work with RFID and DPP to build traceability as a service. And this question about digital product passport is critical in my work. I define digital product passport as a digital twin of a product itself. But it's not just a content, it's about full identity of the product. Materials, packaging, origin, everything that can happen to the product across the life cycle. And that's the fundamentally changing is what product have to show, because we don't not only rely on the physical presence of the product. Now we have this digital product that sits on the digital shelves as well, and they need to move across different kinds of borders, logistical, regulatory, and even overcome borders in consumers' mind when they decide to trust the product or not. And with the growing wave of agentic AI and automated decision-making, the structure and accessibility of the product data become just as important as the physical product itself. Now the product that systems can't read and understand is the product that left behind. So digital product passport is really the foundation, the layer that makes product understandable, not just to people, but to the systems that will manage, trade, and regulate them.
Great, and we have some other slides here that kind of go over that, Aliya, just a little more in detail, correct?
Yeah, maybe if Dom have something to share as well on that subject, I can also add something afterwards.
Yeah, so maybe you can go to the next slide then. Yeah. So DPP, Aliya just explained at a high level, what does it mean? At a lower level, it's a set of regulations that are being worked on that are part of the ESPR, so the Eco Design for Sustainable Product Regulation. And the core framework of the regulation has already been ratified. In fact, it was ratified in May 2024, and that's the upper part of the diagram that you see there. And that regulation, that European regulation, is basically the core requirements that apply to all product categories. So whether you're making tires, as we heard in the talk before, as a matter of fact, tires is one of the target product categories for DPP, or batteries or apparel items, the ESPR framework applies for all kinds of products. Now, that has been ratified and gives the overarching requirements. But now there's work that is being done on the different regulations for category-specific for specific categories of products. And so those are called delegated acts, and they're being written as we speak. The first one that was actually written was for batteries of electric vehicles. And they define the granularity of an identifier. Does it need to be SKU level? Does it need to be batch level or item level? They also require the data attributes and different information in terms of what's required to display to the different stakeholders. And so I mentioned that the one for batteries is already ratified and written, but you have new ones that are being written, notably the one for apparel or detergent that just came out as a draft. And so that's the second package, the delegated acts. On the right-hand side, you also have regulations, European regulations that already mention or that were adapted to mention the digital product passport and make it a requirement to also have a digital product passport under certain regulations. So one example is the PPWR. Another notorious example is the construction products that already mentions in its new form that you need a digital product passport when you are producing construction products that enter the European Union. And then finally, at the bottom, you have these Senelec JTC 24 technical standards. So these are the technical standards that define in more details what the form and shape that the digital product passport needs to take. And you can see here the kind of things that are being addressed. So for instance, at the carrier level, you have a JTC 24 standard that defines which data carriers are allowed for a digital product passport. And in there, we see QR code, data matrix, that's no surprise, NFC as well, and RAIN RFID, UHF RFID is also an option, in particular, since there is now a new format that allows encoding a web address into these codes. So that's also an option that's now viable. And then at the identity layer, these standards define what you need to encode inside these carriers. The GS1 Digital Link is one of the top options, but there are also other options in terms of what you can encode in there. And then as you go up the stack here at the data layer, that's actually the format is being defined by these JTC 24 standards, but the content is defined by the delegated acts, as we've just seen before, and those are coming out now. And then finally, on top, quite often around DPP, you hear about blockchain and verifiable credentials and DIDs. I just wanted to mention that there are discussions around that, but they are clearly out of scope for now. So there's no requirement to use any DLT or blockchain technology for a DPP. Can go to the next slide. Yeah, and just summarizing what we know today from the SPR already. So the products will require a unique identity. That unique identity needs to be based on a recognized standard, as we mentioned already. In terms of data carriers, it will need to be, the digital product passport will need to be offered by one or more data carriers. The data carrier needs to be included on the product, so not simply on a hang tag, for instance. And it needs to use a recognized standard. So the ESPR mentioned the QR code, but the JTC 24 identity standard now mentions also, as I said, RFID as well as NFC. Then the data obviously has to provide information to foster greener choices, to list substance of concerns, to provide an accurate carbon and environmental footprint, as well as one important aspect of the data is it needs to be remaining available if a company disappears. So there must be a backup mechanism. Finally, in terms of access, we know that the DPP needs to be web accessible, so it needs to respond to a web address. The data needs to be accessed to APIs, and these APIs should offer granular access to different actors. Go to the next one. Yeah, last here, I wanted to just show the different technical standards that we mentioned. So the ones on top are already written and should come out on May 28th. And the ones that are still in progress are the additional ones, such as the data authentication. I just realized, by the way, that I made a copy-paste error. So 18239 is not about data carriers. It's about data accessibility. All right.
So with that, what role do you see RFID playing into the DPP?
So as a data carrier, I think the right question to ask is what kind of data checkpoints does we need to be sure we can handle with a digital product passport, and what is actually needs to be there, and what kind of data carrier can capture the data that can be trusted. And it comes to the point that RFID become the perfect choice because a digital product passport isn't a static document, it's a living record, and that means it needs two types of data. So static data that can be captured on the point of the tagging, identity, origin, batch or item, materials, and so on. And the dynamic data that collected as the product moves, custody transfers, location events, temperature, maybe the full life cycle story. And this is where RFID becomes the trusted capture layer, because reads are machine automated and you can get an accurate proven sequence of events, no manual errors and no human entry of information. And when you add a sensor text, the DPP can reflect actual product conditions, cold chain integrity, humidity exposure, product stress, not just what was declared at the production site. And that's the fundamentally different level of data quality. And here it's important to say that RFID and 2D are not competing at some point. In some way, they are doing different jobs here. So RFID is the best for inventory management and supply chain visibility because we have mixed group reads, real-time accuracy. It's quick, it's trusted. And QR is a powerful tool for consumers engagement, although today already been mentioned that there are going to be a accessibility to access to the RFID tags from the smartphones, but still we have to have any some other data carriers like optical data carriers, and here 2D data carriers still have pretty good power. So at the same time, it's crucial to keep the identity consistent across different data carriers and product attributes. Same APC, same GS1 link, and it should be pointed to the same passport. So it can create such a true chain of truth.
Great, thank you. Another question that we have is, what are some of the challenges in terms of the biggest practical challenges organizations face when moving from the concept of a digital product passport to the actual implementation?
Yeah, maybe I can take that one at first. I think a big challenge is basically, the difficulty in implementing DPP as from the information we know today is not necessarily the carrier and the identity. That actually is not trivial, but it's largely resolved, right? We know how to put a QR code on a product, or we know how to add an RFID tag on a product. The real crux come to get the data that you need, especially in cases where the supply chains are complex and they, usually typically involve many organizations from vastly different horizons where connectivity and data is not necessarily accessible in the same way. So gathering the required data is the real challenge, especially in its multi-stakeholder environment. Aliya, I don't know if you have also something you want to add.
Yes, I totally agree with you. First of all, because from my experience, I also can see that collecting the right data pipeline, it's not easy task to do. And from my side, I can foresee as a challenge the gap between pilot and the real scale, because what looks great in a demo is not always sustainable when you try to implement it across the full organization or ecosystem. In food and FMCG, for example, where the margin is already thin, the cost of half-implemented systems is very real. With a digital product passport in particular, the architecture has to be right from the start. Who owns the data, how it flows between parties, what happens when a supplier isn't ready yet. Those are technical questions, they are organizational ones, and that's where leadership becomes critical. So I'm not talking here about who sponsored the pilot, because like anyone can sponsor a pilot, but to make the hard decisions that scaling requires, standardizing processes that people are used to do in their own way, holding partners accountable to data quality, and staying committed when the rollout hits friction, because it will hit friction. The teams that overcome it are the ones where leadership understood from the day one that this wasn't an IT project, it is a business transformation. So I would say don't measure your DPP readiness by how good your pilot looked. Measure it by answer to the question if your leadership is ready to own what comes after it.
Great insight there. And then as we wrap up, what is one key takeaway or prediction each of you would leave the audience with regarding the future of the DPP and connected product intelligence?
So for me, it would be that companies and brands should look at DPP not only as a regulation and a regulatory framework, but as a real opportunity to digitize their products. I believe DPP will be one of the biggest boosters we've known for all kinds of auto-ID technologies, whether it's QR code or RFID or NFC. And so there's a real opportunity to turn these physical products into digital products, having digital twins, as Aliya mentioned before. And I think brands should think of a platform, right? Implementing DPP as a platform to support all kinds of use cases. So use these carriers and these identity to support use cases above and beyond just regulation. It would be a pity to only leverage it for regulation.
Yeah, I agree. And my takeaway, again, is not about technology, it's actually about people. There is a lot of resistance when a new system comes and people have to change the way they work. And DPP does exactly that. It touches data ownership, cross-department collaboration, supplier relationships, and that's a change management journey, not just an implementation project. And the KPIs you measure to know if it's working should not be only about technology itself. Of course, you track read rates, time, and data accuracy, but the more important metrics comes from the questions if teams proactively contributing. Are errors being caught and acted on? Is the data become trusted enough to make decisions from it? And that shift from compliance exercise to operational intelligence is where the real value lives. And again, it requires leadership to own it, not IT department only.
And we have time for just one question. Again, if there's additional questions people have, we will answer that in the post-event materials. And this question is, do we expect DPP to become global in the future? And if so, do you have an expected timeline that you see it?
That's a very good question. I would say, first of all, it's not because DPP is a European regulation that it doesn't impact companies worldwide. I'd say, the rule is basically as soon as you put a product in the European Union, then it needs to have a digital product passport. So I think brands internationally will have to look at DPP.
Absolutely agree, nothing to add.
Well, thank you guys for your time today and your insights. Really appreciate it, and looking forward to talking with you more here in the future about DPP. And also remember that AIM does have a DPP work group. So if you're interested in that, you can reach out to me. I coordinate those meetings. So just let me know, because it's a very interesting topic that's just going to continue to grow.